he threw his wife out of the company she built. The first thing my older brother Marcus said as I reached for a flute of vintage Dom Perignon was, "Put that down, Julian. That champagne is reserved for people who actually brought capital to this company, not guests coasting on free rides." He didn't lower his voice. He said it cleanly, deliberately, letting his words bounce off the polished marble floors and floor-to-ceiling glass windows of the Sky Lounge on the 54th floor of San Francisco's Grand Horizon Tower. Around us, 30 high-profile venture capitalists, tech journalists, and our entire extended family fell completely silent. My mother paused mid-laugh, looked at me, and offered a light, dismissive wave of her hand. "Oh, Julian knows Marcus is just joking," she chuckled softly, turning back toward my brother. "Besides, real leadership is what brought us all together tonight." For 6 weeks, I had quietly built the architectural software platform that was being launched that evening. I had personally authorized my corporate line of credit to pay the $18,000 venue deposit, approved the catering contracts, and secured the private penthouse gallery. Yet no one in that room knew the truth, because I had wanted the launch party to showcase our family's unified triumph rather than my individual ego. Marcus believed my humbleness was weakness. He stood at the center of the room in his tailored suit, wearing that smirk he always wore whenever he thought he had successfully put me in my place. I looked at the glass in my hand, then at the sea of expectant faces waiting to see if I would cause a scene or shrink into the background. For years, I had smoothed over his arrogance, quietly funded his shortfalls, and allowed him to present my hard work as his own genius just to keep peace in our family. Sitting in the back corner seat where Marcus had reassigned me, far away from the main investor table, I realized that offering another quiet excuse would only give him permission to step on me for the rest of my life. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't argue. I set the champagne glass back down on the silver tray, wiped my hands with a crisp linen napkin, put on my charcoal trench coat, and calmly walked toward the glass doors leading to the lobby. Behind me, no one called my name. Marcus simply took another sip of wine and raised his glass to the room, continuing his speech about his tireless visionary leadership. But as I reached the concierge counter in the main foyer, I asked the general manager to pull up the master folio for the night. It was time for the illusion to end. 3 months before the catastrophic launch gala, our father had suffered a stroke, forcing him to step down from the family design firm. Marcus, who had always preferred high-stakes networking over actual work, stepped in as the self-proclaimed managing director. When our father expressed a dream to launch a cutting-edge urban planning software before officially retiring, Marcus immediately promised to make it happen. He created a group chat with 20 relatives, posting daily updates about his grand vision, but disappeared every time vendor contracts, coding deadlines, or financial commitments were required. Having recently sold my share in a successful software startup, I had both the financial capital and technical expertise to bring Dad's dream to life. I took over the software development, hired 2 senior engineers on my own payroll, and agreed to handle the launch event as a tribute to my father's legacy. I explicitly told Marcus that I would cover the gala's costs, but asked him to handle basic administrative tasks like collecting dietary requirements from investors. He replied with a single thumb-up emoji and immediately posted on social media, taking care of everything for Dad's dream launch. Only the best for our family. Relatives flooded the chat with praise, while my mother sent endless heart emojis praising Marcus's devotion. I felt a sharp sting watching him collect accolades for labor he hadn't performed, but I swallowed my pride. I reminded myself that I was doing this for Dad, not for applause. But Marcus's entitlement didn't stop there. 2 weeks before the gala, without consulting me, Marcus contacted the venue manager and added an open bar of rare single malt whiskeys, a 3-course lobster menu, live jazz musicians, and personal valet services for 40 guests, upping the bill by over $12,000. When the general manager called me to confirm the additions, I instructed him that no extra charges could be added without my written consent. When Marcus found out, he called me in a fury, accusing me of ruining Dad's special night. "You always make money so awkward, Julian," he snapped. "I'm trying to build an empire here." I held my ground on the frivolous additions, but maintained the core reservation, paying a non-refundable $5,000 room deposit and pre-authorizing my card for the remaining $15,000 baseline expense. I organized private transportation for my grandparents, personally designed the software presentation slides, and asked the venue staff not to mention my financial involvement. I wanted my father to feel celebrated, not indebted. I had no idea that while I was quietly building the foundation, Marcus was actively preparing my complete erasure. Standing in the marble lobby of the Grand Horizon, the night air chilled my face as I stood across from the venue manager, a composed professional named Arthur. "Is the final charge processed, Arthur?" I asked quietly. "No, Mr. Vance," Arthur replied, checking his tablet. "Per the agreement, the balance of $17,800 converts upon the conclusion of the main presentation." "I want my card removed from the file immediately," I stated clearly. "Cancel my authorization for the remaining balance." Arthur paused, his eyebrows rising slightly. "Sir, the $5,000 deposit is non-refundable, and removing your card means the remaining total becomes due immediately from the host at the table." "Keep the deposit," I said, zipping up my coat. "Consider it the cost of my freedom. If anyone asks how the bill is being handled, hand it directly to the man giving the toast." Arthur looked at me for a long moment, recognized the icy resolve in my eyes, and gave a brief, understanding nod. I walked out to the valet stand, but before my car arrived, I stopped behind the glass partition overlooking the dining room. Through the soundproof glass, I watched Arthur march steadily toward the elevated stage where Marcus was holding court, holding a thick leather folio. Marcus was in the middle of describing how he single-handedly secured the venture funding when Arthur stepped up and placed the black leather folder right beside his microphone. Marcus frowned, attempting to laugh it off with a wave of his hand. But Arthur leaned into the microphone and said in a clear, resonant tone heard across the entire room, "Sir, the gentleman in the charcoal trench coat has canceled his card authorization and asked that this bill be settled directly by you." The atmosphere in the penthouse evaporated instantaneously. Marcus's face strained of color as he opened the folio and saw the balance of $17,800 glaring back at him. My father blinked in confusion, while my mother gasped, looking frantically around the room for me. Marcus snapped the folder shut, his eyes sweeping the room until they met mine through the glass partition. He practically threw his microphone onto the podium and marched toward the lobby, his jaw clenched tight with rage. "Julian, what the hell are you doing?" Marcus roared as he pushed through the glass doors, our father shuffling quickly behind him. Marcus raised the leather folder into the air like a weapon. "You canceled the payment? On Dad's launch night? Are you insane?" I stood my ground, my hands resting calmly in my coat pockets. "I didn't cancel Dad's night, Marcus. I simply stopped paying for a party where I was publicly told I didn't contribute a penny." "This was your gift to the family," my father interjected, his voice trembling with distress. "It was my gift," I replied, looking directly at my father. Until Marcus stood in front of 30 people and used my silence to make me look like a freeloading beggar. If Marcus is the sole mastermind and owner of this launch, then the financial responsibility belongs to the host. Marcus flushed bright red. "I don't have $18,000 sitting in a liquid account right now." "Charge his card," he yelled at Arthur, who stood a few feet away holding an iPad. Arthur stepped forward calmly. "I cannot charge a card that has been revoked by the cardholder. Furthermore, the master contract, software patent rights shown on the presentation screens, and venue deposits are exclusively under the name of Julian Vance." Gasps echoed from the doorway as several investors and family members wandered into the foyer to see what was happening. My uncle Raymond stepped forward, frowning deeply. "Wait a minute. Julian funded the launch?" Marcus, you sent an email to the whole family last month asking us to wire you $1,000 each to help cover the launch venue costs. My stomach dropped. I stared at Marcus. I knew he was arrogant, but I didn't know he was a thief. Uncle Raymond pulled out his phone, pulling up a bank transfer receipt. I sent you $1,000 3 weeks ago, Marcus. My aunt chimed in, her voice shrill. So did we. You told us Julian refused to put up any money because he didn't care about Dad's legacy. Within 2 minutes, 6 family members had pulled out their phones. Marcus had collected over $8,000 from our relatives under the lie that he was funding the gala alone while I was leeching off the family. The mask didn't just slip, it shattered onto the marble floor. The arrogance that Marcus had worn like a cloak all evening vanished entirely, replaced by cold, sweating desperation. That money was for auxiliary expenses. Marcus stammered, looking wildly between our relatives. PR materials. Catering upgrades. Unexpected software licensing fees. Arthur raised his iPad with clinical precision. All software licensing fees, media distribution kits, and vendor tips were fully paid for by Julian Vance weeks ago. There are no unpaid auxiliary expenses on file. The silence in the lobby was deafening. My mother stood completely paralyzed, looking at Marcus as if seeing a stranger for the first time. The golden boy who could do no wrong was suddenly caught holding stolen cash in front of the very family he had deceived. Where's the money, Marcus? Uncle Raymond demanded, stepping into Marcus's personal space. I had to cover operational overhead for the main firm. Marcus stuttered, his excuses collapsing under their own weight. You stole from your own family to pay off your personal debts, didn't you? I asked quietly. Marcus turned on me with pure venom. You set me up. You knew this would happen. You brought me out here to destroy my reputation. No, Marcus, I said coldly. You destroyed your own reputation the moment you decided to humiliate the person who built your foundation. I give you every opportunity to be honest. You chose greed. With 30 high-level venture capitalists watching the drama unfold from the dining room, Arthur informed Marcus that if the $17,800 bill was not settled immediately, hotel security would be forced to contact the local authorities for theft of services. Desperate to avoid handcuffs, Marcus pulled 3 personal credit cards from his wallet. Arthur swiped the first card, declined. He swiped the second, declined. The humiliating sound of the decline machine beeped across the lobby. Marcus turned ash gray. In the end, my father had to transfer money out of his private emergency savings account to settle the bill, while Uncle Raymond forced Marcus to sign a handwritten promissory note on hotel stationery promising full repayment of the stolen family funds within 30 days. I didn't stay to watch them finish paying. I walked out into the cool night air, got into my rideshare, and left the shattered illusion behind me. Over the next 48 hours, my phone blew up with over 60 text messages and missed calls. Marcus sent frantic rants accusing me of ruining his life, while my mother left tearful voicemail messages begging me to come home so we can fix this misunderstanding privately. They still didn't get it. They believed the problem was the scene at the hotel, not the years of deceit that had caused it. I turned off my phone, hired a corporate legal auditor, and went to work. On Monday morning, I summoned my parents, Uncle Raymond, and Marcus to a formal meeting at my attorney's office downtown. Marcus arrived wearing dark sunglasses, looking exhausted, and threw an envelope onto the conference table. There's a check for $5,000, Marcus muttered. That covers your deposit. Now tell the family to stop harassing me. I didn't touch the envelope. Instead, my attorney opened a legal binder and laid out 24 pages of documentation. We aren't here about $5,000, Marcus, I said calmly. We are here about systemic fraud. The binder contained undeniable proof, certified timestamps showing I wrote every line of the software code, bank records proving I funded the entire development cost, and email records showing Marcus had explicitly requested the venue staff to remove my name from the software copyright slide just hours before the party. Most damning of all was a document showing Marcus had attempted to register the software patent under his personal holding company without my knowledge or consent. My father sat back in his chair, looking crushed. "Marcus, is this true?" Marcus tried to muster his old bravado. "Julian has plenty of money. He doesn't need the credit. I was trying to position myself as the CEO so we could secure millions in VC funding. I did it for the family." "You did it for yourself," Uncle Raymond snapped. "You stole from your aunts, lied to your parents, and tried to rob your brother of his intellectual property." My attorney spoke up with icy authority. "Mr. Marcus Vance has two choices. Option 1. He signs a legal release relinquishing all claims to the software, returns every dollar collected from family members, and publishes a formal written retraction to all event guests. Option 2. We file a civil fraud lawsuit and present these bank records to the district attorney by 5 p.m. today." Faced with legal ruin and potential criminal indictment, Marcus's defense completely collapsed. Trembling, he signed the legal surrender of all software rights, agreeing to a court-monitored repayment schedule for the money he had stolen from our relatives. 2 days later, Marcus posted an uncharacteristically bare, humiliating statement in the family group chat and emailed it to every venture capitalist who had attended the gala. "I am writing to formally clarify that the software platform launched on Thursday was conceived, engineered, and entirely funded by my brother, Julian Vance. I had no hand in its development or financing. Furthermore, I improperly solicited funds from family members under false pretenses and publicly mischaracterized Julian's contributions. I apologize unreservedly for my deceit." The fallout was swift. The venture capital firms immediately severed ties with Marcus, refusing to deal with a founder guilty of financial fraud. My father officially removed Marcus from the family firm and appointed an independent auditing board to manage company accounts. A week later, my mother visited my apartment alone. She sat on my sofa, holding a cup of tea, weeping silently. "I was so focused on keeping Marcus happy because he was always so demanding," she confessed, her voice thick with shame. "I mistook your quiet independence for lack of need. I let him hurt you because it was easier than confronting him. I was a terrible mother to you, Julian." I looked at her, feeling a mix of sadness and deep relief. I didn't rush to comfort her or pretend the past 10 years hadn't happened. "I love you, Mom," I said gently. "But competence isn't an excuse for neglect. If we are going to have a relationship going forward, it has to be built on truth, not convenient lies." She nodded slowly, accepting the boundary without protest. For the first time in my life, my family was finally forced to deal with reality. 6 months after the disastrous launch, I officially released the architectural software platform independently under my own firm, Vance Dynamics. Without Marcus's toxic posturing dragging the brand down, the platform secured $4 million in ethical seed funding within 30 days of its official release. My father, whose health had significantly improved once the stress of Marcus's deceit was resolved, attended the ribbon-cutting ceremony as my guest of honor. There were no lavish, performative galas or $18,000 bar tabs, just a quiet, elegant gathering of real engineers, investors, and family members who truly cared. Marcus did not attend. He had taken a lower-level sales job in another city to pay off his mounting debts to Dad and Uncle Raymond. He was attending court-mandated financial therapy, and while our relationship remained distant, he had stopped trying to rewrite history. The entitlement that had defined his life had finally been shattered by the one thing he couldn't manipulate, the truth. At the launch celebration, my mother stood up to give a brief toast. She didn't praise my strength or call me a quiet savior. Instead, she looked directly at me and said, "Julian taught our family that peace without truth is just tyranny in disguise. We are here today not just to celebrate his brilliant work, but to respect his dignity." When a server walked past with a tray of vintage champagne, I picked up a glass. I looked across the room at my father, who raised his glass back at me with a proud, tearful smile. I took a sip, enjoying the crisp, untainted taste of genuine accomplishment. I hadn't ruined my family's legacy by walking out of that penthouse 6 months ago. I had saved my own life by refusing to let them burn my sacrifices as fuel for someone else's lie. Conclusion. Silence is permission for exploitation. When you consistently tolerate disrespect and quietly fix the mistakes of toxic individuals, you do not keep the peace, you enable your own erasure. True self-respect requires setting firm, public boundaries when private kindness is weaponized against you. Ownership comes with accountability. Taking credit for someone else's labor is easy until the true cost of that labor is dropped onto your shoulders. When you step back and let irresponsible people face the full financial, legal, and moral consequences of their claims, the illusion crumbles instantly. Never fund your own humiliation. If people in your life, whether family, friends, or coworkers, treat your generosity as weakness or try to diminish your worth, withdraw your financial and emotional support immediately. Document everything. Keep contracts, financial records, emails, and proofs of your work. When dealing with manipulative personalities, hard evidence is the only language that forces accountability. Distinguish between peace and passivity. Genuine family harmony is built on honesty, fairness, and mutual respect. Never accept a fake peace that requires you to swallow insults, hide your achievements, or finance someone else's ego.